Okay, folks. Hello again. Feels like it's been a bit of a break since we last met. So thanks for joining us for today's Builder Forum series titled Step 4 in EL-3 for Part 9 Buildings. This workshop is really meant to coincide with the Township of Langley's shift from Step 4 in EL-2 to Step 4 in EL-3 requirement as of April 1st for this year. And today's workshop's being delivered by Capital Home Energy. And our primary speaker here is Matheus Alfred-Olmedo, and he's joined by Luke Dolan as well. Today's workshop is brought to you by a familiar group, Green Buildings, and that's Stefan Tran as a technical assistant, at Jean Surrendran as a building energy specialist, myself, Kevin Ramley, Green Buildings manager. So on the menu for today, Township of Langley quick recap and reminders, and then we're going to get straight into the show with Matheus, and he's going to tell us all about a variety of different strategies and methods and mechanical systems, selections, and envelope scenarios to meet Step 4 and EL-3 for Part 9 buildings. And for those of you on your PC or your cell phone, please do use your chat. The chat function is available on Teams. It's an opportunity for you to ask questions to your speakers, and as well as the municipality, and as well you can ask questions to your peers across the province. And as a bit of a test, and just to let us know, why don't you go in the chat and let us know where you're watching from. I can do that as well. So I am in the Township Langley, and we're getting folks say hello in there in the chat. So that's great. So do take advantage of the chat. We will have question and answer time with Matheus and Luke, but feel free to post your questions in the chat, and we will try to get to every single one. Welcome to spring. And with that, we also would like to welcome Stefan Tran. Stefan is our new co-op student coming from Simon Fraser University, studying sustainable energy engineering. He follows his predecessors, Kira Lai and Amy Drysdale, in the role. Please welcome Stefan to Green Buildings and our field. He's already doing a lot of great things for us, and we're looking forward to working with them. Okay. So a bit of a recap. The last time we met, and I believe this was around December, we took a quick departure from our typical, more traditional workshops. We're really focused on Part 9. We decided to take a bit of a dive into Part 3 buildings. And so I won't spend too much time here. If you're a Part 3 builder, designer, developer, etc., this will be relevant, very relevant to you. The main topic was energy and air leakage. And this is particular, again, to Part 3 buildings. And really, this workshop and a larger study was really meant to answer the questions: what happens when your air leakage is higher than expected? How much tolerance do you have? If you're planning ahead for some air leakage, how much tolerance should you plan around? Finally, what can you do to avoid trouble? The findings were very interesting in this study, and without kind of going too deep into it, what we did learn was, in a lot of scenarios, I don't think design folk realize how much tolerance they don't have. So do watch the video. We have a study to go with it, and you can chew on that and learn a ton about air leakage and Part 3 buildings. And as well, of course, check us out at tol.ca/gblearn to watch the lecture, watch the workshop, and get your credits for free. Okay, bit of a reminder of 2 bulletins that the Township of Langley released about 6 months ago. And one of them is rather important for a brand new requirement in BOABC 2024. And that's 9.33.3.1, overheating protection. This is a brand new requirement, AIBC. There's been some confusion about it. Township of Langley realized that we should really kind of provide some more information and support to our building industry to help them understand what to do and really effectively to get the building permit smoothly. So do check us out at tol.ca and navigate through our website. You can see at the top of this page, buildings and development, and you can work your way through there to find the bulletins, forms, and resources, and the bulletin right here, PLI overheating protection. So we have explained what the bulletin has, and really we've gone through the bulletin in a prior workshop, and you can watch that on tol.ca/gblearn. I'll give you a quick summary here of really what the compliance methodologies are. And as a reminder, the requirement of 933.3.1.2 indoor design temperature says is that the outdoor summer design temperature required cooling facilities shall be capable of maintaining an indoor air temperature of not more than 26 degrees in at least one living space in each dwelling unit. Okay, so as a reminder, at least one living space. This means it needs to be a habitable space, which it does not include things like a laundry room or an unfinished basement or some kind of common space kind of corridor. It needs to be somewhere where you can live, such as a master bedroom or a living room or a finished space. And that also includes each dwelling unit in the home. So if it is a single family detached home with a secondary suite, that's 2 dwelling units. Both of them need to meet this requirement. So do find the bulletin. In summary, the 3 compliance methodologies that you'll be typically going through is listed here. So 1, if you have a centrally ducted heat pump or air conditioner, and that's sized to CSA F280, we also have a bulletin on that. Boom, you're compliant. That's the simplest, kind of most straightforward manner to be compliant with 933.3.1.2. The second option is to cool a space, and this is available to you through code. We call it localized cooling. It's cooling a master bedroom or a living room. You can usually do this through a mini split, so that's a terminal head in the space and a condenser outside. Or something called a PTAC, that's a package terminal air conditioner or a package terminal heat pump. You've seen these in hotels. They're like through the wall. If you choose to do that, we have a neat and tidy design methodology in our bulletin. How do you size it is really the key. Do look to the bulletin. This bulletin will really apply to municipalities in Metro Vancouver in kind of our climate zone. If you're kind of designing outwards, there's other bulletins available for you. So if you do choose one of those mechanical systems and you do follow this bulletin to design it, boom, compliant. Also available to you through code is the option to pursue a non-mechanically cooled solution, or a solution does not have mechanical cooling. So it's through passive design and whatever else you choose there. The Township of Langley bulletin clearly states and notes that if you wish, you are welcome to take that route if you wish. However, it's effectively it's PN sign off. You will need to have a signed and sealed report that demonstrates the space will be able to or will not exceed 26 degrees, and it needs to be signed and sealed. Reminder for those who are not on one of our coolest new products, and that's the Green Buildings On Demand learning platform. Green Buildings On Demand is a free learning hub, and this product was created for builders, EAs, building officials, or anybody really in industry to help them be able to benefit from these kind of workshops, to gain the experience or the education to build to all these new requirements, but also or somebody cannot show up at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday in April. They don't have that chance. They don't have the ability to get the credits. Well, Green Buildings On Demand Learning Platform is a Township of Langley product we deliver to builders that allows you to watch the workshop completely free, and through its system, you can still be fully accredited, or you can watch any of our courses and get the credit. You can watch anytime you like. We've had this, we launched about 15 months ago as our kind of soft launch to trial this out and get this out there. And I'll give you a few stats. Since then, we have 175 unique users, delivered nearly 700 hours of content, and as well delivered 711 continuing professional development hour credits, building industry members across the province. So I think it's the first year or so has been stellar for it. If this is the first time you're hearing about this, do check us out, tol.ca/gblearn. You'll find a button that takes you to the portal. We have registration guides and all types of support if you're worried about how to kind of get onto this system. Do take a look and take advantage of all our courses. And a few of our most popular courses here: air tightness and permitting in a net zero energy ready step 5 targeted home. That's the Qualico Street side net zero energy ready townhomes here in the township. A very, very cool series of workshops. Zero carbon step code 101 and zero carbon step code 201. A brand new page on our Green Buildings On Demand learning platform is our resource center. Do take a look at the top of the page and find the link to Resource Center. This section is meant to hold things other than workshops. The primary product of Green Buildings On Demand are videos. You watch the video and you learn a lot, and then you get a certificate for your credit. However, we have tons of other resources, primarily like reports or compliance tools. Do take a look there. If you're an EA or a building official or a builder and you want to learn more about compliance, do take a look there. We have bulletins there as well, and very cool studies and reports that are really meant to explore what our options are and really test theories. Some very cool academic stuff, which I'm sure will help anybody here in the room. Check us out, tol.ca/gblearn. Okay, we're just about ready to get into the meat of the day. So please join me in welcoming Matheus Alfred-Olmedo from Capital Home Energy. With 15 years of experience in residential design, Matheus is a senior energy advisor at Capital Home Energy and focuses on high performance energy design. Matheus has a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and also is a master energy advisor to the CACEA. And really interesting, in his spare time, Matheus teaches historical European martial arts and sword fighting. So with that, let's welcome Matheus, and maybe Matheus, you can now share your screen and deliver the rest of the workshop.
Perfect. Let me just organize my things on my end here, and I will start sharing screen. All right, it should be presenting. Can you confirm you can see it?
Looks good.
Great. Let me just organize the other screens here on my end. Perfect. Well, thank you guys for hosting us. So as Kevin mentioned, we're going to be talking about a few solutions on how to get from what we're currently at step 3 with EL-2 and moving on to step 4 with EL-3. So essentially improving on the buildings that we're currently designing. We are Capital Home Energy, so we've been energy advisors for over 15 years. We are a licensed energy service organization with AIBC. We service everything from the Lower Mainland up to Whistler, BC Interior, Vancouver Island. So we have EAs in all those areas, and we're also a CHBA net zero service organization. So we can certify your homes to achieve net zero. So we have a fair amount of experience with building getting permits, but also building high efficiency homes. I'm going to be one of the presenters. I'm going to be doing the bulk of the presentation, but we also have Luke Dolan here with us. He's the director of Capital Home Energy, also a CACEA certified master energy advisor, and he's been in the industry for over 15 years. Been starting from a home inspector, he moved on to become an energy advisor and has been evaluating homes ever since. He's also one of the founding members of CACEA. So that's, for those of you that have not heard, that's the Canadian Association of Consulting Energy Advisors. It's an organization where we basically are seeking to professionalize our industry. And if you're looking for an energy advisor, that's always a good place to look for someone that's in good standing. For myself, as Kevin introduced me, I am Matheus Alfred-Olmedo. I'm a senior energy advisor with Capital Home Energy, also master energy advisor through CACEA, and been working with Energat actually since about 2011. And likewise, CHP Net Zero certified, and I can also do the F280 12 heat gain loss calculations, specifically those that you would be needing for your cooling requirements, and that the township has kindly provided a guidance for. So in this presentation, what we're basically going to be looking at is 4 kind of general components. We're looking at the Township of Langley's new energy code requirements. So what do we need to do to meet our latest step code requirements? We're going to be framing it in the lens of step code, but also in the lens of how do we prevent overheating with these new cooling requirements. So we're keeping that in mind as we go ahead and seek how to achieve step code compliance for step 4 and step 3 and emission level 3. Final note that we'll do is just keep some incentives in mind. There's a lot of really nice options on how to get some money back if you build a high performing type of home. So that's sort of the general overview of what we're going to be looking at. So I frame everything, all of the information we're delivering here today, in essentially 4 kind of components. So when we're providing feedback, I'm an energy advisor. I'm thinking about this in terms of how I am as an energy advisor and how I can give you the best type of answer. So there are 4 sort of things that we're navigating here. We're looking at how efficient your mechanical systems are. Can your mechanical systems cool all the dwelling units in your building? Does your opaque and transparent envelope perform well? And finally, is your operational carbon emissions under what's required? So that's a lot of things to sort of navigate and balance. And essentially, they come down to this. We have mechanical performance, cooling requirements, envelope performance, and greenhouse gas emissions. So this is essentially what step code is looking at, with a few extra bits. We're looking at energy step code, we're looking at zero carbon step code, and we're balancing all these 4 components to provide compliance in a cost-effective and achievable way, one that is easy to understand. So everything from the presentation is going to be framed under these 4 lenses. So everything we provide, it's always going to call back to one of these 4 things. So I'll start with the cooling component of this. This is actually related to Kevin's review of preventing overheating, the cooling requirements that have come into effect fairly recently. Ideally, they are a protection against extreme heat. So a few years ago, we had some heat waves. Some people sadly passed away. This is a way to provide protection against protection and comfort in homes in a way that, well, lets people be comfortably within their home. I'm not going to go too deeply into the requirements. As Kevin pointed out, there is a seminar or webinar about it before, so you can look at it in detail in the township's links. But again, there's the 3 compliance methodologies. You cool your entire house, you cool one room in the house, or you don't provide any mechanical cooling. You show that you can passively cool your house. Keep in mind that, again, there are very explicit requirements about it. So if you're talking to a designer, make sure that they understand that there is this the indoor design temperature overheating protection bulletin is around, and they need to follow the requirements there. One thing to keep in mind, and this is important for making sure that you're doing a good job both to meet the overheating protection requirements, but also to size your mechanical equipment, is these things need to be sized through the CACEA F28012 procedures. So their heat gain and heat loss analysis. It shows you how much energy is required either for the whole building or for each room in a way that lets you size your mechanical systems. So typically when you're talking to an energy advisor or an F28012 designer, we'll talk about two things, a block load or a room by room calculation. Block load looks at the whole building. So you're getting this is how big your cooling device needs to be, or furnace or heating or cooling device, I guess. And room by room calculation also provides you the block load, but also will break it down by each specific room. This lets you size where things are going to go, the ducting, the how big the equipment needs to be. Lets you make an informed decision. Key to the whole overheating protection is that, as Kevin pointed out, the cooling system must be an integral part of the building. So you can't have a plug and play sort of AC. You have to have something that is part of the building to meet the requirements. Pathway one cooling system for the whole building. You can do it through a block load calculation or through a room by room calculation. Both would achieve compliance. When you look at pathway number 2, when you have a single room being cooled, it's really nice to think about it as you're putting everyone within the household in one room, and you need to cool that room when everyone is in that one room and it's very hot. So that's when we go back to the overheating protection bulletin, following those procedures really nicely. There's basically a modified room by room calculation outlined, and it's a conservative estimate of how much cooling you need. So you're going to be putting an AC that cools that room really, really well when everyone is in it. And sometimes you can use a bedroom. Often, personally, we would recommend a living room. That's just easier to have everyone in one place comfortably. So that's, regardless, cooling one room, you need to make sure that you have something that is big enough for the whole household. The last pathway is the passively cooled dwelling units. There's no mechanical cooling, and Kevin pointed out, you need essentially a professional engineer to sign off on this. This is related to the building code requirements. You essentially need proof that you have done the study to go, okay, we look at this house, we actually don't need mechanical cooling. So there's 3 pathways that you can comply. All of them can be achieved in different ways. There will be, just a quick note, there's going to be some new methodologies introduced from TECA and HVAC Designers of Canada. I still don't have access to them, so be on the lookout for them. They will provide some easy ways to comply to the cooling requirements for the BC. So we gave you 3 pathways. It's like, okay, you look at them and you go, okay, what's going to be the best one? In our experience, simplest is usually best. Just install mechanical cooling. Best even install mechanical cooling for the whole house. This will ensure that you have a good, comfortable building, and you just simply meet the requirements. You do need the F28012 calculations. You can do the block load calculations. They're usually done much more easily, especially if you have an energy advisor on staff or on call, that we can provide something like that for you, and you can easily size your mechanical system for the whole house. You can still use the refuge room, the one cooled room if you so desire, but in our experience, just add cooling to the whole house. Key thing to remember is each dwelling unit must be cooled. So if you have a secondary suite, that needs to be independently controlled from the primary suite. If you're doing a duplex, each side of the duplex needs to be cooled individually. So same applies to secondary suites. And if you ever have questions about, okay, how am I going to do this? I don't really want to install cooling. Well, ductless mini split systems are great for small spaces. You can add something like what's being shown on screen. We'll talk a little bit more about ductless mini split systems later on. And that's a simple solution for your cooling requirements. So this is the brief overview. Again, more information can be found in the webinars from the township. And if you have any questions, we're happy to help you out on that. So without further ado, this is the first big technical part of the presentation, is an overview of the step code. The step code has a lot of different requirements. There's a lot of different numbers. There's a lot of different things to keep in mind. This is where energy advisors like myself come in, and we can help you navigate what the step code is talking about. I've simplified the step code into 3 performance metrics. We're talking about mechanical performance of a house. We're talking about the air tightness of the house. And we're talking about the envelope performance of the house. The step code provides particular metrics for this, and I'm going to briefly go over them. This is not a step code seminar, but it's nice to think about it. Again, because we are energy advisors, we're framing a lot of these upgrades and a lot of these options through the step code and what is required here. So the step code looks at a whole building. Even if you have different suites, we look always at a whole building. So if you have a single family home or a single family with a secondary suite or a duplex or a row home or a multi-unit residential building that still falls into Part 9, those are all whole buildings. We look at one building, and that's what we're going to provide to you when we give you a step code report. This really emphasizes that we're looking at the home as a system concept. So we look at the mechanical systems, we look at the envelope, we look at the insulation, we look at your windows, we put it all together, and we are analyzing how everything affects one another. And this is what the step code is going to be telling us. This is how we're going to know how well your home performs, the entire thing together. This also emphasizes something about how we design your homes. We think about the envelope first. Make sure that your insulation, your windows, and your air tightness is down, and that'll make everything else much easier to achieve. So if you've spoken to energy advisors before, and most of you folk building in Langley have built to step 3, often you might see something like this, a table that looks somewhat like this. These are the step 3, step 4, and step 5 requirements, and really, we break it down into, we have mechanical systems. I'm going to use my laser pointer here. We have the mechanical systems. Over here, we have air tightness, and we have envelope performance. So when we look at mechanical systems, we're looking at one of 2 targets that need to be met. I'm not going to go into details into this. This is, again, something that we've seen before. And if you have questions, an energy advisor can help you a little bit more about it. But the step code always has multiple metrics. As long as you meet one of them, you are going to comply with mechanical performance. Same with air tightness. Here we're just showing ACH, but there are some other ones I'll touch on briefly soon. And same with envelope performance. We have multiple targets that we can meet. As long as you meet one of these, you are achieving that particular step code. If you meet all the targets for that level, you can achieve step 4. So this is what we're looking at now. We're moving into what's colored here in red. Looking at mechanical performance of 40% better. We're looking at air tightness of 1.5 air changes an hour, and we're looking at an envelope performance that is 20% better. I'll touch briefly on each one now. So we'll start with mechanical performance. It really looks at how much energy you're using to heat your house, cool your house, ventilate, and your domestic hot water. Just those 4 things, we add them together. We provide two ways to measure it. Simple way to think about it is how we're going from step 3 to step 4. Step 3 was described as we use 20% less energy than an NBC code minimum house. And the National Building Code provides a methodology for how to calculate this. Our software produces it automatically. We need to use 20% less energy. We needed to use 20% less energy than this code minimum house. Now, moving to step 4, an easy way to think about it, to sort of wrap our heads around it, is we're using 40% less energy than this National Building Code minimum house. For air tightness, we have a few air tightness metrics. We're looking at air changes an hour. Most of you folk have done a blower door test. You've seen you basically pressurize or depressurize your house, and we measure how much that entire volume of the house changes every hour. So the lower the number, the better we perform. There's also two more metrics in the latest revision of the STEP code, which is NLA, so normalized leakage area, and NLR, normalized leakage rate. So these ones are essentially, the normalized leakage area looks at all the holes in the house and divided by the square meter per square meter for the house. So it sort of tells you how many holes you have per meter squared of the house. Normalized leakage rate is similar to NLA. It's looking at how much air is flowing through each meter squared of your house. So you go, okay, what are these? How does that impact my house? This is great. It's actually a very positive change. This change was implemented in May 2023, and it makes it easier for smaller homes to achieve their air tightness metrics. If you've built a small house, ACH, the air changes per hour, is often a tougher target to meet because of the small volume. Small homes usually change the whole volume of the house much faster than a bigger home. So NLA and NLR, they give you an option that if you do a blower door test and your energy advisor goes, oh, you're actually above the 1.5 ACH requirements, well, that's great. We can still, as long as you're meeting either NLA or NLR, you're actually doing pretty well. Of course, I want to simplify this. I want to make sure, okay, we're presenting this to, it's like, how can we wrap our heads around this? This simple way to think about it is, from step 3 to step 4, we're going from 2.5 air changes per hour to 1.5 air changes per hour. So that's where we are right now. This is a table from the BC building code. This actually shows all the different metrics. The targets are for step 3, step 4, and step 5. And we have 2.5. So right now we are at air tightness level 3. That's what's required for step 4. We need to have 1.5 air changes an hour, or 0.72 centimeters squared per meter squared for normalized leakage area, or 0.53 liters per second per meter squared for normalized leakage rate. All of this, you go, wow, how do I calculate this? That's great. Energy advisor will come in and will be able to produce these numbers for you. And once they give you your either mid-construction report or your final as-built report, these numbers will be presented there, and you don't have to worry about the specifics. They will be automatically produced. And third, in our overview of the energy step code, we have the envelope performance. So whereas mechanical performance looked at how much energy is going into the house, the envelope performance looks at how much energy is needed to keep the home at a comfortable temperature in the coldest time of the year. So we have the TEDI, the thermal energy demand intensity, and the percent heat loss reduction as metrics. As long as you meet one of these two, you're going to be fine. And to think about it easily, you can, again, it compares, it's nice to think about it as step 3 to step 4. In step 3, we use 10% less energy. In step 4, we're using we require 20% less heating energy than the National Building Code minimum house. So that sort of gives us an overview of where we are currently at step 4. We need 40% less mechanical energy. We use 20% less heating energy, and our air tightness is at 1.5 air changes per hour. So this goes into now the next step of the step code requirements, and this is the zero carbon requirement. So when it was introduced, it had basically a staggered approach, similar to how the idea was to meet better performing energy step code levels throughout the years. We can slowly stagger to better and better performing homes. We had measure only to start off with. We had a more moderate carbon performance. We had strong carbon performance, and we had zero carbon performance. And the zero carbon step code measures operational carbon only. So what's being used for essentially the mechanical performance of the house, now converted to fossil fuel equivalent emissions. And easier to talk about, instead of going moderate, easy, strong, medium, we have emission level 1, emission level 2, emission level 3, and emission level 4. So what are these emission levels? So we look at three things, and as with the rest of the step code, as long as you meet one of these three targets that will be presented here, you are going to meet that particular emission level. So we look at the quantity of carbon pollution, how much CO2 equivalent you're emitting per year. Second option is you look at the intensity of the carbon pollution. So how much CO2 equivalent you are producing per meter squared of the house. And finally, you always have that option to just simply install electrified systems. So not necessarily electrified, but specifically fossil fuel neutral systems. So currently we are at emission level 2. We have essentially a target of about 1,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per year, or 6 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per year, or your fossil fuel and water heating. Fossil fuel can be used for water heating and cooking. That's great. Moving to EL-3, this is where we are right now. So we've gone from 1,000 kilograms of CO2 per year to 440 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per year. Our intensity goes down to 2.5 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per meter squared. And now only the fossil fuels are really allowed primarily for cooking. Your water heating or your space heating needs to be electric. EL4, it gets more and more stringent. You can see the numbers go down, and we stop allowing for fossil fuels for the prescriptive path. We start allowing for carbon in space heating or space cooling. Remember that you have, as long as you meet one of these three, you are good. So you can have fossil fuel and still meet, say, EL3, and this is some of the solutions we're going to provide later on. If fossil fuels is something that you want to have in your house, that is fine, provided it is efficient enough to meet one of these three targets. Nice note for people who have to remember that the auxiliary heating equipment in your house is going to be exempted. So we just look at space heating and domestic hot water. So fireplaces, wood burning stoves, decorative fireplaces are allowed. They're not limited. So despite of there being a lot of restrictions, you can still do different systems. Kevin, you have a question?
Thanks, Matheus. I don't have questions, but there's some questions popping up in the chat, which I think it's a good chance to get to it. So I'm gonna throw these at you here. So Wally poses a question, and Jean did get to it in the chat. I think the rest of the room would benefit from an answer here as well. So question goes, if you have an EnerGuide label of 0, I think it means a single family detached, does it meet all of these requirements? And it was in reference to the section where you're speaking about overheating protection.
That is a great question. So an EnerGuide of a 0 gigajoule per year rating is a net zero home. So you're producing enough energy in the house to offset the energy consumption. Key thing in that is it's energy neutral. The amount of energy you're producing is offsetting the total energy, not electrical energy or basically not electrical or fossil fuel emitted energy. So you still have emissions associated with the house. So the step code doesn't actually take into account renewable energy generation. You would still be emitting the house. So you could have a fully gas system and be net zero and still not meet the step code, the zero carbon step code requirement here. So despite...
I think it's about the cooling requirement specifically. So I think what he's saying is if I'm a net zero home, do I automatically meet the new cooling requirement?
No. The answer is no. You still need cooling for the house.
And Wally asked the question, and it was in reference to your slide that you're explaining the zero carbon steps. You use the term fossil fuel neutral, and he says, what is fossil fuel neutral?
I think I misspoke.
Oh.
Simply, it's either best way to think about it is either electricity or natural gas, especially for the Township of Langley. You have you either heat your systems electrically or you heat them through natural gas. That's really what we're looking at. Potentially in the future, there might be new options that come up, but they are not. None of them are implemented in our current systems, and we don't know. We don't have any timelines if anything like that is going to be effective for meeting the zero carbon step code. So, best way to think about it, and I do apologize, it's just think about electricity or think about natural gas. Those are the things we're really balancing here.
Kelsey, this asked the question, and the township can answer this. Will this presentation be available after the session? Absolutely, it will be. It will be recorded and put in onto our Green Buildings On Demand learning platform, and you can review it there. Howard asks, how neutral is electricity created by diesel generators?
Good question. We don't, as the zero carbon step code will basically not judge, but we won't be able to tell the difference. That said, the township might have some restrictions on that. We assume, because this is all done through the EnerGuide labeling system, we are assuming a certain source for the different fuel types. So we assume that BC Hydro is providing your electricity. We assume that FortisBC is providing your gas. If that changes, that we are typically not necessarily capturing that. So that might be, if you have a diesel generator, if you're on a off-the-grid property, you might need to, there might be different requirements from the Township of Langley. Kevin might be able to answer that better than I.
Thanks, Matheus. I think we're caught up for questions. Howard goes on to explain a little bit more. So Howard's out in the Yukon, so thanks for joining us from so far. That's really great. And he knows much of our winter electrical in the Yukon is by diesel. So just for kind of clarity, and I guess we can wrap this conversation up here, is that if we were using diesel to power a necessary service, it would be through the BC methodology of assigning carbon emissions to a fuel. We would reference that, and diesel would probably have a rather high carbon footprint. Here in British Columbia, particularly in Metro Vancouver, diesel is not really typically used in a residential scenario. If anything, we use diesel as backups in large buildings. And those would just simply not, they would be exempt. Backup power for backup purposes is simply exempt from any type of calculations pertaining to compliance. Okay, I'll hand it back to you, Matheus.
Perfect. Thank you.
Actually, sorry, one thing, I apologize. Matheus was informing us on air changes, and so air changes per hour, NLA and LNR for step code, in particular step 4. I did want to highlight, just put this out there, if you're not 100% aware, the Township of Langley is one of the few municipalities that do provide incentives for mid-construction blower door tests. So if you're not very experienced in step 4 or above, and you're worried about meeting your air tightness requirements at mid-construction, you can hire an energy advisor and ask them to do a mid-construction blower door test. That's before drywall, to get a sense of how airtight your building is. The Township of Langley will be able to reimburse you a certain amount of money, and maybe Stefan could put our page there in the chat. But just as a reminder for you that don't know, we do offer incentives for mid-construction blower door tests. Thanks, Matheus.
Perfect. So picking up where we left off, talking about auxiliary heating equipment, you can still have it. So even if you go emission level 4, you can still have potentially auxiliary systems in your house. Likewise, cooking is exempted. So gas ranges and barbecues with natural gas connections are still okay. For completion, I like to include the tables. This is the bulk of what we look at when we're thinking about zero carbon step code. These are the targets we are currently navigating in for the Township of Langley. And as long as you meet one of these 3, you are going to be compliant. So total greenhouse gas emissions or CO2 equivalent per floor area with a maximum sort of number attached, or prescriptive design for your heating hard water. So these are our current targets. Just a nice way to think about it, or at least to visualize it. So we've talked about step code. We talked about zero carbon step code. I'm going to first do a little segue here and talk about some mechanical systems and some of the things that are going to help us illustrate some of the solutions that we'll provide later on. So talking about heat pumps, talking about combi heating systems, and rainwater heat recovery as a solution. So we've heard about heat pumps. They're designed for space heating and cooling. They can be either ducted or a ductless mini split sort of system. The nice thing about a heat pump is that they are very efficient. They can heat and cool the house. And a lot of the times, to meet the higher emission levels, we're thinking about greenhouse gas emissions here, is really the heat pump is electric. So it essentially provides less emissions than any other type of systems. This is a picture of an outdoor coil for an outdoor condenser for a centrally ducted system. And for those of you that are not familiar with it, this is what an indoor ductless mini split might look like, with an outdoor unit sitting outside. You have the refrigerant lines coming into the home, and then split between these indoor cassettes, these heads. You can condition specific spaces in your house. So you could have a living room condition, you can have a bedroom conditioned. If you have a small house or a small say a secondary suite, this can actually be great for both heating and cooling in the house. So heat pumps are electric, and a big question that folk will ask is backup heat required? You install your heat pump, do you need to have a furnace? Do you need to have an electric baseboard? And the answer really is, if it's properly sized, modern heat pumps work fantastically. A lot of folk have bad experiences with heat pumps, and that's usually heat pumps that are old. They just don't perform well when it's colder, or they just can't keep up the load. If we hear horror stories about being a cold snap and a heat pump not being able to keep up. Well, if it's properly sized, it'll most likely be able to keep up. That's the important thing. This is where the F28012 calculations come in. You need to make sure that that heat pump is big enough for your house, but not too big so that it's inefficient. Again, if you're sizing it properly, you're using a properly rated type of heat pump, it will work well. It can be useful in colder climates. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. And if you really want backup heat, that's okay. You can have an all-electric system. There's ways to implement a resistance element in the ductwork. So if you have a centrally ducted heat pump, the air distributor can have an electric resistance element, so that if you need an extra little bit of heat, that can be provided through just electric resistance or a baseboard. So say a secondary suite, you can have an electric baseboard. That said, you can also do a hybrid system. So where you have the primary heating as the heat pump, and you can have a natural gas backup of some sort. Cold climate heat pumps. So for those that are concerned, it's like, okay, what if it gets really cold? Most modern heat pumps are rated to operate between -15 degrees Celsius and -25 degrees Celsius. Cold climate heat pumps are specifically designed to operate in under -20 degrees Celsius or lower. So it's not really required for where we live. Our climate zone is fairly mild, but say if we had someone from the Yukon, this is actually something that you might want to consider, your cold climate heat pump, so that it can operate in colder climates. In colder climates specifically, I would also recommend having a backup heat, because if it goes beyond -20, -30, -40, you want something a little bit more robust to keep your home comfortable. But the heat pumps will take the majority of the load for a good chunk of that the time, and when you need it, if you need it, the backup heat can kick in. Another question that comes up often is, are heat pumps more expensive to operate? Still, modern heat pumps. Modern heat pumps are fine. They're actually very similar in operating costs when compared to a well-sized natural gas system. So they cost about the same, but the heat pumps will use way less energy than say a combustion-based system when comparing them side by side. So it's really because we're balancing mechanical performance, cooling requirements, and greenhouse gas emissions at the same time. The heat pump sort of fits all those requirements really nicely. So say when you're sizing it, here's some kind of best practices for when you're considering this type of system is make sure that it's sized properly. You can use the F28012 calculations. You need them for the Township of Langley. This will help you essentially select the correct size equipment for the home you're building, and helps everyone knowing that the heat pump should be tested with an AHRI number. So what it means is AHRI provides matches different pairs. So you can have an outside condenser from a different brand from an inside indoor coil. The two of them need to be tested. So you can match you can pick and match a bunch of different systems, and some of them are just not tested, so we don't know what their performance is. The best thing to do is to make sure that you select one that is AHRI certified. Next slide actually shows what the AHRI page looks like. Quick note that the heat pumps do replace ACs, and this is what the AHRI directory looks like. If you're wondering, is this how well does this home perform? Well, this is great. You can go to the AHRI directory. You can type in the outdoor brand, the indoor brand name, come up with a list of products that work for you. You go, wow, this is a little bit beyond me. That's great. Energy advisors, this is part of what we do. We can help you find, is this product actually certified? So, talked about heat pumps. Let's go to the combined space heating and space and water heating. Typically, they are natural gas. They heat both your space, your space heating, and they also provide domestic hot water. They can be often there are hydronic heating. So what we're doing is heating up the hot water, and then the hot water for your domestic hot water use also is used for space heating. The heat itself can be distributed in one of two ways. You can have it as forced air, so you can have it as basically just a fan that blows hot air around the house, or in different configurations, you can have it as in-floor radiant heating. So no forced air heating, but basically radiant loops in the floor. We're still balancing our greenhouse gas emissions, so this can be used in conjunction with a heat pump. The heat pump does the primary heating of the house, also does the cooling, and the hydronic heating comes in and sort of as a backup heating whenever it's needed. The nice thing about the combo system is that it also provides the hot water, so you have that all kind of integrated into one. Whenever you're talking about combo systems, there is an option of having a retaining tank or no retaining tank. All from our analysis, we really want, for greenhouse gas emission purposes, we want tankless systems. We don't want a retaining tank that actually increases the energy use and overall ends up having higher emissions associated with the building. So for greenhouse gas emission optimization, go with the tankless systems. And sometimes you may require a drain water heat recovery. Don't worry, we'll talk about a drain water heat recovery in a couple of slides. This is what a combi system looks like. And the particular one that I want to highlight is the CACEA P911 certified hydronic forced air heating. So here we have two pictures of basically tankless hot water system. This is a Rinnai, and the air handler. I believe this is an iFlow air handler. So water is heated from the tankless. It's connected to the air handler, goes in here. There's a fan that blows air and distributes it around the house. These systems are really efficient. They perform really nicely, but they must be there's a very specific list that qualifies for these products. So if you're wondering what would a CSA P911 system look like, there's a website right there for you. You can look up the results that come up, and those would be the certified ones for the energy modeling purposes. If you're curious to see what it looks like on a mechanical room, this is a really nice P911 system that we modeled. You can see the tankless hot water. You can see the iFlow air handler here, and because we're going to talk about it in a second, here's a drain water heat recovery pipe as well. This is what it looks like installed. Again, I'll talk about that again a bit more in a few slides. A few notes about hybrid fuel systems, and this is a specific requirement from Township of Langley. When you have a hybrid combination system being used where heating is powered by both electricity and natural gas, and there is a requirement for us to meet emission level 2 or higher, so in this case, emission level 3, then you must provide sufficient documentation for the authority holding the jurisdictions that the hybrid system will operate in a manner that meets both the energy step code and the zero carbon step code. This can include things like sequencing of controls, the heat pump cutoff temperature, a heat pump performance curve or tables, and other information. Without such documentations, it cannot be determined that the hybrid system is designed and installed to meet these required targets. So this information needs to be available in your building permit documentation. So really, if you are doing a hybrid system, make sure that you include a way to show, yeah, we are designing a hybrid system. This is designed to work first heat pump, then backup system. It's very easy to, if you don't have that, no one can really verify or enforce this. So the Township of Langley and other authorities having jurisdiction will ask you to prove this. And it's a nice thing to keep in mind as you are designing your systems. So with that note aside, here's what a drain water heat recovery looks like. So this is the pipe that we saw a little bit earlier. It's essentially what it's doing, what a drain water heat recovery is essentially there's a shower, the hot water from the drain pipe goes down, it preheats the water that's going to be going both either to your hot water tank, or in this case, a tankless system or electric hot water tank, and can also sometimes preheat the water going into your shower. This is actually the most efficient configuration. This is what saves you the most energy. And this is a simple diagram illustrating what it might look like. Often the drain water heat recovery is installed underneath the primary bathroom. So the primary bathroom in the house, so that all that nice hot water is not just thrown away. It can be used. You can save quite a bit of energy with that. So they're efficient. They're actually they're efficient, and it's tied to the length. The longer, the better. So usually we want about 50% or higher. They go up to as low around 30% of recovery efficiency. For greenhouse gas emission purposes, we want to aim for something a little bit higher. So the longer, the better. Mentioned on the previous slide, we can preheat the domestic hot water only, or we can preheat both domestic hot water and the hot water going to the shower. You have that option, choose that. For those energy advisors on the call, this is about how much energy savings we have. So it doesn't look like a lot. A home is usually consuming between 50 and 80 gigajoules a year. 2 gigajoules per year might not seem like a lot, but that can be enough to just push us over the edge of greenhouse gas emission compliance. So it's a useful thing to remember. Keeping that in mind, they're actually incredibly inexpensive. So material cost is between $500 and $1,000, with installation costs ranging about the same. It's fairly easy to install. There's no moving parts. Once it's there, it's good to go. There's not much maintenance involved in this at all. So it makes for a very low-cost investment for a pretty nice low-hanging fruit type of energy performance. It improves your mechanical performance and your greenhouse gas emissions. And even if you don't explicitly need it, it's just a nice way to save a little bit of extra energy. So drain water heat recoveries are talked about. We talked about combo systems. We talked about heat pumps. Another question that comes up sometimes within our areas is, what about power outages? You're concerned about, okay, I have a fully electric system. I want to install, I don't know, backup gas or something like that to make sure that I can still have heat when I have no power and I need that heat. Well, the only real ways to have backup heat is really with a backup generator or with solar panels with battery backup. Most heating systems these days, they need electricity to operate. Your natural gas furnace needs electricity to operate the fan. Your boiler needs electricity to operate the pump. So the only backup heating system, if you're really concerned about having power outages and not being able to heat your house, you need a fireplace. Wood or gas fireplaces are actually really nice. And even gas fireplaces, you can often ignite the fireplace with just with a pilot switch or taking off the cover and pressing a button. Check with your manufacturer how to do this. They might have different requirements, and depending how old the fireplace is or how modern it is, it might not be immediately obvious how this is done, but this is an option. If your client or yourself, you're concerned about not being able to heat up the house when there's no power, well, get a fireplace. This is a great way to do this. This is all the precursor to what we actually, the bulk, the meat and potatoes of the presentation is. All of this is a way to just get us to how are we going to achieve compliance with step 4 and emission level 3. But before I go on, I think, Kevin, there's some questions?
Yeah. So maybe now is a good time to take a few questions that have been trickling in the chat. Moran asks about, how about the electricity cost? Many customers complain about the heat pump electricity bill, and this is during the time that you were introducing this technology.
Can I answer this one?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Please do.
Yeah, I was going to answer this one because we get this one quite a bit. We hear that, oh, heat pumps are really expensive to run, or they don't work. So you got to remember, we're also talking about a step 4 home here, right? So we're talking about a beefed up envelope. So we've got more insulation, better windows, an airtight building, right? So your energy loads, your heating loads and cooling loads are a lot less than an older house. So a lot of maybe people that have a bad taste in their mouth from forced air heating or from a heat pump that didn't work, might have been an older home, might have been an old 80s, 70s house that, was drafty, not properly insulated. The system was not designed properly. Matheus mentioned previous about an AHRI number. It's extremely important to make sure that you're installing a matched heat pump system, and very important to be also doing proper room by room F28012 heating and cooling load calculations. Extremely important. Proper duct sizing is important as well. So all of these taken into consideration will help reduce those utility bills. And I understand where people are coming from. Without putting a match system in, what we mean there is, you have a outside compressor, an indoor evaporator coil, and let's say an air handler. All 3 of those components need to be tested to work together. If they're not tested to work together, if you're putting in one manufacturer's product on the outside, another manufacturer's product on the inside, and they're not tested to work together, no one really knows what the efficiency of the unit actually is. You might think that you're buying a certain level of efficiency, but when those systems get put together, they might not actually be optimizing their efficiency. So that's why there's such a big stress on making sure you're talking to your mechanical contractor and putting in a matched heat pump system. And that's what this directory is for. This AHRI directory, and your mechanical contractor should be able to help you with that. If they can't, energy advisors are well versed in AHRI numbers. We have to search for these things all the time. Sometimes can be quite challenging. And Natural Resources Canada also has a database as well too. So there's a number of different reasons that if you want that system to be working properly. And also keep in mind, step code is an envelope first approach, right? So there's more emphasis on envelope, therefore reducing your need for energy, therefore hopefully reducing costs and less complex, fancy, expensive mechanical systems.
Thanks for that, Luke. Okay. Wrong Sun makes a comment. kind of piggybacking on the previous question, and it's noted not only the bill, but also the cost of maintenance. If it's too cold in winter, it may not work properly to get the expected indoor temperature. The filter may get ice and condensation, plus there's not many qualified repair contractors, especially in winter, for quick response. How come this is not talked about when suggesting heat pumps to clients and designers? I think Luke covered much of that. Matheus or Luke, do you have anything to add?
Once again, if it's a properly matched system installed by professionals, they should work well. You know, I've got my system my house was built in 2004. I've got an old Carrier heat pump electric furnace. It's still working fine. I know it's on its last legs. I mean, you get 20, 25 years out of these systems. That's just the way it is these days. And then you're going to have to replace them. But if you do proper maintenance, you know, you have somebody come by, look at them once a year, replace your filters. So there definitely is going to be some homeowner maintenance involved. Working with professionals. I know there's lots of really good professionals. You can go on, look for TECA qualified heat pump installers. You know, TECA is the Thermal and Environmental Comfort Association. It's basically the governing body for mechanical contractors in BC. And they've got a long list of trained professionals that should be able to help you install that heat pump system.
To follow up on what Luke is saying, the question also had something about ice building up on the bottom of the heat pump. Absolutely a problem. Your installer should be able to install it in such a way that can mitigate that. It's about lifting up the heat pump, the outdoor condenser high enough so that if there is a danger of flooding or water sort of freezing, well, that can be minimized. So that's something that you can talk to your mechanical contractor before you install the system, or something that you can bring up, with your energy advisor or with your team as you're designing the house.
Okay, thanks, Luke and Matheus. And I'll also add in the chat here the link to the Home Performance Stakeholder Council. That's a group that's really meant to support the deployment and implementation of heat pumps. And I believe they'll also have a network of qualified contractors that can ensure that your install is done correctly. Okay, there's some more, so that's a comment. I'll leave that for here. So I think this is a question here. So Jeff asks or notes, as an installer and owner of a mechanical company, I find much of this information works great on paper, but not in reality. The question is, do you ever speak to us certified installers on how these systems operate in the field? Even if it is a matched system, you cannot force people with an existing structure to upgrade all their ducting. It is not just the equipment, it is how the ductwork is ran and sized. So maybe I'll start with a response here to Jeff. So thanks for your question and comments and experience. I think that's very valid, particular to your comment is around existing buildings. I think existing buildings is the real kind of next really big challenge to address. But for kind of to keep things within the context of the workshop and its topics, we're really focused on new construction and solutions for these buildings, particularly step 4 EL-3 or around that kind of type of performance of building. So thereby the intention would be, as Luke and Matheus noted, the demand is remarkably low, and we do have an opportunity to design and implement today's standards such that they do operate as expected. Fully acknowledge existing buildings are a real animal to take on. Matheus or Luke, if you wish to add to that.
Yeah, actually, this segues really nicely into basically how to achieve compliance with the step code. Because a lot of these solutions, a lot of these things are, as Jeff pointed out, they're things that work great in paper. So we need to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So making sure that you have essentially, we call it the integrated design process. You talk to all your specialists early in the procedure. You're about to start your permit application, great. Engage an energy advisor, engage your mechanical contractor if you can, and have a talk with everyone. Make sure that everyone's on the same page. You're trying to achieve step 4, great. What do you need to do to achieve step 4 in this particular building? Can't emphasize this enough. The solutions that I'm going to present are archetypes, are things that work for that particular build and will work for a lot of buildings, but they're not necessarily the solutions that will work for your building. They might be different design conditions for the building you're creating. There's going to be different requirements from the client, homeowner. Maybe there's restrictions provided by the land that you're building on. So these are things that we can't account for in just archetypes. So talk to your team early on so that we can address as much of this as possible before it becomes a problem on site. So having the match system, okay, you try to have a general idea. It's like, okay, we need a heat pump that's about this big. Great, we have a sense of how big the ducts are going to be required because we already have an F280 heat gain and loss calculation for the home. This is going to give you the solutions way before they become a problem. So integrated design process, talk to your team early, get your energy advisor on board to make sure that everyone's on the same page so that all these problems can be addressed early in the process.
Matheus, maybe we'll take one more question before we get started on this new section here. John asks, really good question. Can you speak to the noise of heat pumps, in particular between units and strata townhomes conditions?
They all have a noise rating. There are noise bylaws in most jurisdictions. It's usually recommended to go below 55 decibels for ratings. That's usually a fine, not particularly noisy heat pump, but they all should have ratings. So if it is a concern, especially in a strata, there should be either a bylaw for within the strata to just sort of go, okay, we are not going to accept heat pumps that are noisier than a particular level, and that's if it's a concern, you should just look at the ratings that are provided by manufacturers, because yeah, they can get, especially the older ones can get noisy. Newer ones typically are much quieter.
I can add just a tiny bit to that, John. So we follow this quite closely. We have noise bylaws, and heat pumps are becoming a thing, so we want to be more aware about its impact outside of just kind of energy emissions, but kind of noise and those matters. What we found is, Matheus had noted in the past, they certainly were kind of noisy. We're finding now with kind of modern heat pumps, and I'm not talking about the Ferraris or the real ultra premium ones, but really the more consumer ready heat pumps or available heat pumps, that their noise ratings are going down a lot. So what would have been a really premium or quiet type of heat pump 10 years ago is kind of more run of the mill now. And what we're seeing, and just a few of my colleagues bought heat pump systems, heat pump furnace combos for their existing buildings, and these were not the highest of the quotes, and their noise ratings were low 50s, and it was certainly lower than 55 that Matheus had noted. 10 years ago, that would have been a different story altogether, but we're seeing that happen. So the trend is that they are getting, I think the technology is getting cheaper, and it's able to have better performance. So I think really the trend is that they're getting quieter, and they'll be able to be applied in kind of these high density areas with less problems. So I think we'll move on, and we'll let Matheus go ahead, and we'll go ahead, keep throwing questions in the chat, and we'll get to them, I think, at the next transition.
Perfect. So this is the meat and potatoes of the presentation. We are looking at our three archetypes, three types of buildings that we've performed a step code analysis on. They were all starting at step 3, EL-2 at least, and how do we upgrade them to step 4 and EL-3? So we're looking at a single family home. We're looking at a single family home with a secondary suite, and we're looking at a townhome with 4 units in them. So let's first archetype that we are analyzing here. And just a call back to what we've been doing, what we were thinking about again in terms of mechanical performance, envelope performance, air tightness, and greenhouse gas emissions. This is all how we are approaching the solutions for all these 3 archetypes. So archetype number 1, a single family home. Run-of-the-mill home, it's about 3,500 square feet. It's a volume of about 33,000 cubic feet. Window-to-wall ratio, so basically this is a number that is useful to us to sort of have a sense of how much glazing there is on the house. 20% is about an average home. Lower is better. Higher makes it the home perform worse. More windows. Your windows are, well, actually, I'll talk about that in a few slides. More windows usually performs worse. And we also talk about complexity. Like essentially think about a floor plan. We have an example a few slides later, but the more corners you have, the more zigzaggier houses, the worse it typically tends to perform. So where do we start? What is this this base design? The home has in terms of envelope, it has no slab insulation. It had a basic below grade wall of just concrete with 2x4s with the R14 inside the 2x4s. The above grade walls were just a standard 2x6 with R22 bat. Exposed floors, so often energy advisors will talk about exposed floors. So it's floors above unheated areas. So a floor above a garage or a bay window. These are often, this home had TJIs with the R28 bat. There was no flat or vaulted ceilings in this particular model, and the attic space was a truss with R50 bat. The windows for the step 3 home was double glazed with a performance of USI, so the U factor in metric units for 1.6 and a solar heat gain of 0.25. Quick note on solar heat gain. Solar heat gain is essentially how much free energy you get in the winter. The higher the number, the better, the more energy you get during the winter, but it also means that in summer, you get way more heat as well. So too high of a solar heat gain helps you in the winter, but really hurts you in summer. Too low means that you don't get any free heat. Generally, a good conservative number for a solar heat gain coefficient value is 0.25. Just basically means that the home won't overheat and it will still get some heat, some extra heat during the winter. With that segue out of the way, the doors are just a standard insulated fiberglass, and mechanical systems really was just there's a furnace, no cooling, and the domestic hot water was provided through natural gas with a tankless system. So that's where we started for this home. So we applied 3 solutions here that would all achieve step 4 and at least EL-3. Starting first with the envelope, because again, we're focusing on envelope first approach. These are the solutions for the envelope. And we're looking at, so the base design, this is where we started, and anything that's changed is highlighted. And all of you will go, that there's only one upgrade. We've added triple glazed windows. It's like, is that what we need to do to achieve step 3? Possibly. I'll break down why windows in a second, but it's windows or an equivalent upgrade to your home. So we're looking at thinking about the envelope of the house and thinking about where's the energy lost in this particular example. We started looking at things like this. The base design, achieving step 3, consumed about 77 gigajoules per year. 25 of those 77 gigajoules were just electricity and essentially electric loads for the house. So we started looking, okay, we look at this breakdown. This is taken from our EnerGuide reports. We look at where the majority of the heat loss is happening. And it's really one of 3 components. We are losing heat through the walls, we're losing heat through the windows, and we're losing heat through the basement. Airtightness, because it is step code, we have a target already. We should really upgrade airtightness. That's why the step code focuses so much on airtightness. That is normally the biggest point of heat loss, but because this starting at 2.5 for the step 3 house, well, we know that the air leakage is only 14% for this case. Okay, so I'm going to upgrade part of the envelope. And if I have to pick one of the things that is the best, I will go for windows, because if you think about a house, you have, say, an R22 bat inside the walls. And that's a big chunk of the heat loss right there. It's an effective R16, 17, depending on the specific configuration of the house. Windows, when you convert the U factor to R values, a Windows R value is about R4. So it's really like having a blanket, like having a jacket over you with holes sort of punched on the jacket itself. That's what a window is. It's just a point of heat loss. So if we upgrade that, that's actually going to make the whole house much more comfortable and much better. So that's how we upgrade the windows. We add triple glazed windows to make this house consume less energy. So when we go to option 1, 2, or 3, we reduce with the airtightness, both airtightness and well, air tightness, envelope upgrades, and mechanical system upgrades, we went from 77 gigajoules per year to 52 gigajoules per year. And you start seeing an interesting trend here. The windows still, let me just add this, it's about 3-ish gigajoules less of energy. You start seeing that the loads, the heat loss still happening primarily through the foundation and the walls, and I guess everything sort of reduced a little bit. But we've done enough to improve the house enough to get us to the targets that we need. So focusing on that, there is we have alternative options for the how to get to that step 4. You don't want to do triple glazed windows, that's okay. Another good way to do this is improve the walls. Your above grade walls can be, you can add exterior insulation if you're comfortable with that, or you can build with 2x8 walls. That means that you basically, they perform roughly the same, and you can go with double glazed windows instead of the triple glazed windows. If the above grade wall is not something you want to do, you can always go to the below grade walls. You can do an ICF, or do a simple concrete, cast in place concrete with 2 inches of XPS and 2x4, and the XPS can be inside or outside. If you do that particular assembly, do not use poly. XPS is a vapor barrier. 2 inches of XPS acts as a vapor barrier, so there's risk trapping moisture in there if you have 2 inches of XPS and a poly. That's just a quick note for on the building science. ICFs are actually really nice. I'm a fan of them. You need to pour the concrete anyway. You need to have the forms anyway. So the ICF just sort of saves you the trouble of insulating the basement afterwards. So this is a great solution if you're comfortable using them and you're familiar with them. They are fantastic, fantastic products. So either one of, we have triple glazed windows, or better walls above grade, or better walls below grade. Any of those 3 options will get you to step 4, which is a nice way to think about it. We've talked about envelope. Let's go air tightness. Now we know the air tightness target here is 1.5 air changes per hour. Okay, so you need to have an air barrier strategy. Are you going to be using the interior poly? You're going to be taping and sealing all the polyethylene vapor barrier. It's going to be both your vapor barrier and your air barrier. Are you going to be doing an exterior taped house wrap? So when you put a Tyvek on, you're going to tape and seal all the joints. Are you going to use something like advanced airtight drywall? There's many strategies around, and this is where the integrated design process comes in. You're not sure what you want to do? Great, talk to your energy advisor. I'm particular towards exterior air barriers. Once you do an exterior air barrier, you don't have to worry about, once it's installed, you don't have to worry about a lot of the penetrations being compromised, because it's outside, it's protected by the, your cladding. It's essentially done. If you do poly on the inside, once it's installed, you need to make sure that if someone's coming in after another trade is coming in and slashing it in to work behind the wall, they need to seal it up again. So it can be a little bit harder to maintain an integral air barrier throughout the process. Integrated design process. Talk to your energy advisor, talk to your trades, talk to your architects. Make sure you have a plan for how you're going to address all this, because that's where the air tightness is not going to you're going to fail. So this is where we notice most of the issues with high performing homes. Step 4, step 5 is the deficiencies happen in transitions. Have a plan. Have a plan how you're going to go between floors to walls, walls to ceilings. How are you going to go from each one of these layers? It's important to have a strategy, because it's easy to forget. It's easy to go, oh man, I did not notice that there was an air leakage point there. And if you catch it too late in the stage, then it becomes much more expensive to fix. Kevin mentioned that there is a incentive for mid-construction blower door tests. This is why they're there. This helps us identify any problems that are in the air barrier and make sure that we achieve that 1.5 air changes required. there's a lot of resources online as well. If you're worried about detailing and like what you need to be mindful about, there's a bunch of guides that show you, it's like, okay, these are the points that you need to be mindful of. We see exposed floors. We see basically exposed floors, walls to between the living space and the garage. We talk about rim joists, more exposed floors, transitioning between ceilings and walls, to ceilings, back to walls. Making sure they have a good way to do these transitions is going to be perfect. Once you have it down, your home can achieve the envelope and air tightness targets without an issue. So we've gone envelope and air tightness. This is great. So we've improved those two. We've reduced the energy loss enough to get us to step 4 metrics. So let's talk about the mechanical systems. So really, it's mechanical performance, it's cooling and greenhouse gas emissions for the house. This is our base design. This is where we started. Option 1, option 2, option 3 show slightly different options to get to still step 4 and emission level 3. Option 1, we look at a home that has only a heat pump for heating and cooling, no backup heat required, and the domestic hot water is just natural gas. Give me just a second. Excuse me. So this is what we have for option 1. The drain water heat recovery is recommended. It will help you reduce that both the hot water usage and the overall energy of the house. Option 2, we actually use a P911 system as backup. So that's what we have for the backup heating system and the domestic hot water. In this case, the drain water heat recovery is required. So keep that in mind. If you are using gas as your domestic hot water, the drain water heat recovery is probably going to be required to keep those numbers low. And option 3 is actually all electric. We explicitly didn't use a heat pump here just to try it out, and it does work. It's not great, but it does work. So you could have a electric primary heating, could be an electric baseboard, then AC as your cooling, and a conventional electric tank. So back to how that heat loss is distributed is we look at we look at the space heating for the base design, and we look at it's about 52% of the energy for that base design was done through just the space heating. So that's a lot of the energy just for heating the house. So we look at option 1. Okay, we've gone from 77 gigajoules per year to 52. Great. We have a heat pump with natural gas backup. Great. The distribution changes quite a bit. We have the space heating is now 24% because of the heat pump. It actually reduces that load quite a bit. So percentage-wise, suddenly the heating is not taking up that much energy. That's where the heat pump shines. It's cooling, and space heating is way less than in terms of percentage from compared to the base design. The loads start being dominated by 3 things. Water heating suddenly becomes much bigger, and the lights, appliances, and other electrical systems are just suddenly are much more. Your bill is basically much bigger in that way. So why is this happening? This is basically have to do with how our energy model works. Is we're essentially we assume there's a certain amount of people that live in the house, and they're going to use hot water. So that load is almost fixed. And one of the few things we can do to decrease it is, okay, we have a high efficiency hot water system. Perfect. We can add a drain water heat recovery to make it even more efficient. So this is where, this is why we've recommended what we've recommended. And just for illustration, we have option 3 where, let me just go back one slide. We have option 3. Again, there's more energy being consumed. You can see that there's just a little bit of cooling load, but the majority of it is happening through the space heating. So it's an electric system, but a lot of that energy is all electric. And the light, appliances, and other electrical components do take up a good chunk of it, but not the majority. So we've done an analysis. We have a sense of like, okay, we have options for our envelope. We have options for our mechanical systems that meet the greenhouse gas targets and the cooling requirements. This is great. An energy advisor might provide something like this to you, where it's a table that shows you the results of the different options. This is just here for illustrations purposes. You can compare the efficiency of each home and see, okay, which one is better. The mechanical targets for option 1 are 65% better than the reference house, and the percent heat loss reduction is 30% less. You can see the purple table here on the side, how it's just the step 4 requirements, and just comparing one to the other. They're actually option 1 and option 2 perform very close to one another, which is interesting to see, even though they have the same envelope upgrades. How the numbers are calculated become a little bit different. And step 4, proposed option 3, where we have the electricity requirements, just electricity for heating, but no heat pump. You can see that the percentage increase actually doesn't meet step 4, but we meet step 4 through MUI. So it is a much worse performing house, despite the fact that it still meets step 4. So this is just something to keep in mind. Different solutions will perform differently. So depending on your house, this may not be a possibility. Do the same thing for the carbon step code. Proposed options 1 and 2 meet the intensity targets, and proposed option 3 meets basically all the targets for zero carbon step code. In fact, option 3 meets EL-4, which is because it is essentially a fully electric home. Man, that's a lot of things. We need to meet step 4. We need to meet EL-3. That is just for the single family home. So, right, we upgrade airtightness. Plan for your airtight home. Make sure that you have a plan. Talk to your designer, talk to your energy advisor. How are you going to do your airtightness to achieve 1.5 air changes per hour? Okay, upgrade your envelope. Envelope first, windows or walls. You can pick either one. You can actually do a little bit of mix and match if you really want to, but if you can, triple glazed windows, you're going to install in windows anyway. Triple glazed windows bulk price might be a little bit higher, depending on the quote that you're getting, but you're going to install windows anyway. So if that's the only cost you're looking at in terms of the whole house, it's not a bad way to make the house more comfortable and more efficient. Then we think about mechanical performance, cooling and greenhouse gas emissions, balancing all those three together. Heating and cooling. Heat pumps are great for heating and cooling. You'll have you'll meet your greenhouse gas targets, you'll meet your heating demand, you'll meet your cooling demand. If you want backup heat, it can be electric or natural gas. And finally, the domestic hot water. Electric systems are also always great. You can use an electric system that will meet the step 4 and EL-3. If you want gas, make sure that it's a tankless system, and added rainwater heat recovery for easy savings and just ensure that you're meeting that greenhouse gas emissions. And as always, integrated design process. Talk to your energy advisor. Talk to your team before you move on to actually selecting what you need. So this is still a single family home. A brief note about the size and shape of your house. We talked about corners earlier on. The more corners you have, the more complex the house is going to be. There's more heat loss, so you probably need more insulation to offset the greater heat loss. Likewise, larger homes have larger heat loads, so you will need to do different solutions. Tall rooms, double rooms, basically the taller the building, the rooms, they tend to perform a little bit worse too. It increases the surface area for heat loss for the house in relationship to the heated floor area. So they tend to perform a little bit worse. It's a lot of stuff, right? And talk to your energy advisor. We'll help you with figuring out a solution for this, because again, the design can be slightly different. It can be, there'll be slightly different solutions depending on what you need. The more you deviate from, the more complex your house is, the larger your house is, it might limit what your mechanical systems are. So that's something we want to keep in mind as you move forward. This is just a simple example of a complex versus a simple floor plan. You can see the one on the bottom is a square. The one on the top is not a square. The not a square performs worse than the square. as expected. So the closer you are to a box, the better the home will perform. So if you're trying to build something affordable, this is actually a great design to keep in mind. Stacked boxy homes perform much better than, well, not stacked boxy homes. Simpler is cheaper. They're actually easier to detail the air tightness. The transition points are much more straightforward to get right, and easier to achieve a higher step code house. So this is the note about complexity that I wanted to touch on, and I'll go to archetype number 2. It's actually very similar to archetype number 1. So I'm going, we're running short on time, so I'm going to go a little bit faster on this ones, but similar in size, a little bit smaller than the previous home, but the biggest difference is there is a secondary suite. So how does that change things? We actually have almost the exact same configuration. There is the secondary suite has an electric baseboard as a backup. The base design actually started with an air source heat pump, so that was one of the big differences between the two. So let's go to envelope first. We have envelope, we have air tightness. Here, for illustration purposes, I actually went with one of them has option 1 has improved concrete assembly, improved basement assembly, and option 2 has triple glazed windows. So we can sort of see how they perform in relationship to one another. Spoilers, they perform about the same in terms of envelope. So those are the differences in terms of the envelope of the house. When we get to the mechanical performance of the house, we are now, the biggest difference is there is now, we have, for heating systems, we have a heat pump as normal. We can have backup gas if needed, but the hot water usage now becomes electric. And why is this? Why suddenly we have an electric hot water for our home with a secondary suite? Well, why is it being restricted? Water usage, as I mentioned earlier, was driven by how many people live in a house. The more people live in a house, the higher the hot water use. We can't reduce the hot water use because it is essentially a requirement that we have these many people living here. They're going to use this much hot water. So there is we go with electric to be able to meet those greenhouse gas targets for the house. If you want drain water heat recovery, still recommended, but it's not required. It would just, again, improve the performance of the house. There are some different options. Could you use a different fuel type between the main and the secondary suite? Sometimes. That actually depends on your particular configuration. So if you really are dead set on using natural gas for hot water, okay, IDP, and you'll get a design process. Talk to your energy advisor, let them know this is what you want, and we may be able to come up with, okay, you can use gas for the primary unit, but electricity for the secondary suite. That might be an option, or invert it. It's going to be case dependent depending on the specific design for the house. If you're worried about it, it's too complicated, great, just put electric or hot water and you will be fine. This is the performance of the house. So envelope performance, air tightness, and mechanical systems. This is what we're looking at in terms of compliance. We actually comply with, we're doing fantastic. Both homes perform fairly well in relationship to the step code. And the more dense the house is, the easier it is to achieve. So the more dense the more occupants there are in a building, usually easier to achieve the envelope targets. You can think about it as people heat up a house just by being inside the house. So the more people inside the house, the less heat you actually need to bring in the house. It's a nice feature of the step code and how it is calculated. So yeah, these are homes that perform well. They consume fairly little energy now compared to what we had at step 3, and they're meeting all the requirements for both step 4 and EL-3. In summary, plan for that airtight house. Make sure you have those air barriers detailed. Envelope first upgrades. Go with think about windows or think about walls. It doesn't matter which one you do. Pick one that you are comfortable with. Make sure that that envelope is performing well. Mechanical systems, cooling and greenhouse gas emissions, use a heat pump for heating and cooling. If you want backup, it can be electric or natural gas. And finally, the domestic hot water. Most likely it's going to be electric. And if you really want to check with your energy advisor for natural gas feasibility, make sure to do so early. Integrate a design process. Talk to your energy advisor, talk to your architects, talk to your mechanical contractors early in this process. So with that in mind, we have our final archetype. Excuse me. We have a 4-unit townhome. Each townhome is around 2,300 square feet. The total is about 9,200 square feet. Basically, each townhome performs about the same as the previous homes, slightly smaller. And in terms of complexity, it's essentially a condensed version of the previous home, just now stacked as a row home. Actually, again, it starts basically with the same type of envelope, windows, and mechanical components. But the biggest difference between them is because there's so many people living in the smaller space, the envelope upgrades that we go for is we actually staying with double glazed windows. Row homes can perform better in terms of envelope. So you're not changing anything for the walls. You're not changing really anything for the below grade walls. We're just going from not so great double glazed windows to slightly better double glazed windows. If you go with triple glaze, you will absolutely meet these targets, but you don't need to. That's the nice thing about this is with just going with better double glazed windows, you are now, this row home can get to the step 4 envelope requirements. The challenge for the row house then becomes air barrier between common walls. This is needed explicitly for the EnerGuide testing. So this is something that energy advisors will need. We test each individual row home. So you need an air barrier between party walls. Oh, sorry, not between party walls, on the party walls, so that we can test each unit individually. This is part of the integrated design process. Have a plan for that particular, for the party wall. Failures in attached homes usually come down to party wall strategies. So there are other testing procedures where you can test the whole building, and that is an option. It's outlined in the BC building code. You can talk to your energy advisor. Some of them can help you with that. But when you're testing a whole building, it's a little bit more, it's more expensive because you need more blower door tests at the same time running together to be able to test the whole building at once. So although there are options, often we'll recommend keep it simple. Add that air barrier between units because it'll make the home perform better. Actually can do a lot of improved comfort for each individual unit, and it will be more affordable in the long run for the whole design procedure. So with a note of air barriers out of the way, we have the mechanical systems, and lo and behold, we have a heat pump for the primary heating system. You can have, in option 1, you can have natural gas as your backup. And just as with the home with the secondary suite, we want electric heaters for each unit. In the end, the home performs well. It actually performs really well in terms of the envelope targets. But the challenge for dense homes is making sure that you meet the mechanical targets. Just so many more occupants that you need to make sure that you reduce your energy consumption as much as possible. So making sure that the heat pump is there is critical for row homes, and making sure that you have the electric hot water system is also critical to meet the greenhouse gas emission targets. This is again just showing the actual performance of the zero carbon step code. You can see option 2, because it is essentially all electric, meets EL-4. Both actually meet EL-4 just based on how the numbers come in at the end. In summary, for the row home, airtightness. Plan for an airtight home. Make sure you have plans for that party wall. Make sure that you have plans for that floors above garages and any sort of transition points. Envelope first. Make sure that you have a good envelope, but because it is so dense, does not have to be as intense as single-family homes or single-family homes with secondary suites. Heating systems, mechanical performance, cooling and greenhouse gas emissions, heat pumps. If needed, you can have a backup electric system or a natural gas system. And for your domestic hot water, you're going to be using your electric system. Integrated design process. Talk to everyone. Talk to your whole team. Make sure that you know all of this before you start building. So this kind of covers the bulk of our presentation. One last note, which is important to for your wallets. There are incentives around for energy performance buildings. When you go to Better Homes BC, there's a list of available rebates on there that you can apply for. The only currently available one that is useful here is the Fortis BC rebate. They give rebates for step 4 and step 5 homes. They have very explicit requirements in terms of your heating systems. You need to have a heat pump for your primary source, and the backup needs to be gas. And depending on what you have as a backup system, there are requirements for the domestic hot water. Check the program requirements, talk to your energy advisor. They can help you navigate this and make sure that you actually achieve the requirements before you even decide on what you're going to buy. Keep this in mind because this can make some of these harder, higher step code homes much easier, much more affordable to achieve. $15,000 is nice for just meeting a step 4 home, right? So, are you guys confused yet?
Matheus, I think you're on mute.
Process.
Okay.
So keep in mind, we have mechanical performance, we have cooling performance. Oh, give me just a second. My headphone decided to there we go. Sorry. Someone weird Bluetooth headsets decided to speak to one another. So I'll finish with this. There's a lot of stuff to navigate. You just need to make sure that you meet step code 4, emission level 3. Talk to us. We can help you achieve all of these different targets. The nice thing is you do have options. You have a lot of options. There's a lot of ways to meet your needs, and people like us, we're here to provide solutions for your next project. We can help you with what you need. So talk to your energy advisors, talk to your designers, and we can get you solutions. And with that, thank you very much.
Thanks, Matheus. That was really great. We did see a lot of options, and that's good to know that our building industry not kind of fixed into a few methods. We have a few minutes left. I'd like to take some questions here in the chat. And while we're doing that, if you do have further questions, do put them in the chat. Even if we don't have time to get to it today, by 11, we will answer those questions offline and make a document and submit it to everybody who attends. So this is your last kind of call for questions. Do dump them in the chat if you have them now. Okay, so let's just see if there's anything remaining here. So Jeff made some really cool comments about new refrigerants with lower noise ratings, and as well as they have a lower global warming potential. Wally had some questions about EnerGuide, and I think those questions were answered. Okay, this is a good question. Question is about the Township of Langley mid-construction blower door test rebate. Yes, is this only for step code 4 homes, or can you get the mid-con rebate for step 3 projects finishing up too? You have an active building permit in the Township of Langley, and you're at kind of mid-construction, pre-drywall, and it is for step 3. That was the requirement. You're totally fine to take advantage of the program. And if you have other questions about that, please email us at greenbuildings@tol.ca. Stefan did put a link in the chat. I do want you to take a look at that. So Matheus did highlight a lot about envelope and air tightness. There's a lot of nuances there. There's a lot of experience that you want to kind of gain. So do click that link. This was a really great lecture or workshop we had by RDH, which really intended on giving a lot of practical examples, real life examples out of the RDH lab, where James showed us literally with his hands and his assemblies what you can do to improve air tightness. Wally talks about radon. Is radon being addressed? Short answer is 2024 BC is addressing radon. Some questions about where you can find the links to the Green Buildings Rebate Program. It's in the chat.
There's a question about. There's a question from Holly. Requirements for air tightness between main house and its suite. There are none. The main house and the suite are tested as one.
Okay. Thanks for that. Kevin Patterson had a very similar question. Let me just find it there for you. In your opinion, what is the best approach to party wall air barrier systems in townhomes? My experience is air tightness target was difficult to achieve.
Yeah, I might field that one. Kevin, it's a great question. Yeah, it is. That's where most builders struggle with, is the party wall air tightness. So what we're seeing out there, it does boil back to integrated design. So making sure you have a system already in place prior to the build, and making sure that all the different trades understand what that system is, especially the framers. That'll be the keys to success. So what we've seen, I think Matheus had a picture of a WRB, weather membrane. She showed some Tyvek in between the units. That works well. So, we're using Tyvek, taped Tyvek, using proper tape that might be designed to stick to wood, for instance. Tape sheathing. So if you have shear wall in between the units, tape sheathing works really good too. We've also seen poly on one side only of the common wall. So poly on one side only of the common wall. That's very popular. Transition points, making sure you've got a pre-strip of whatever it is, or you've sealed in between those two party walls leading into the attic or ceiling space. Between floors are challenging. If you've got a stairwell running up alongside that common wall, you need to make sure there's proper sequencing, so you're air sealing that prior to framing. Oftentimes we see on job sites where the party wall is done last, where it should have been done in conjunction with the framing. So sequencing is really important, but those are some of the three main ones we see. I mean, we've also seen ICFs in between units. Those work well too, but might be a little costly. Poly, Tyvek, whatever your weather membrane, seems to work really well. But making sure you've got a plan going into it is the key to success, I would say.
Thanks, Luke. Holly has another question. Does duplex require air tightness between the two dwellings?
Yes, it does. Yes, we test those each individually. So not only for compliance, but you want it airtight between the units for sound and smells, smoke, potentially as well too. So it's not just all about the air tightness factor. From that perspective, for meeting the compliance, you also want to make sure that it's an airtight, soundproof wall. But for duplexes, absolutely, we'll be testing each unit individually. And there is ways of testing the whole building, like Matheus mentioned, with multiple blower door fans.
Luke and Matheus, Kevin has a comment. He notes it's also difficult to tie into an exterior air barrier system.
That's a good point.
Okay, I don't see any more questions trickling in here as we close the workshop. So thanks everybody for joining us today, and thank Luke and Matheus for delivering a really informative presentation with a lot of dialogue. I think today we had a lot of great dialogue in the chat and questions and sharing, and that's really important. That's what these are here for. I really do want to remind everybody in the call to please do our survey. It's going to come, it's here in the chat, and as well, it's going to come in an email. That survey helps us understand what y'all want to learn about, what's working, what can have some improvement, and really if we should continue delivering the Builder Forum series to y'all folk. So please do our survey. Please do check out our Green Buildings Permit Rebate Program, which includes the mid-construction blower door test. rebate. And do check out Green Buildings on Demand for our prior workshops, and you can also get the credits if you did miss any of those. So with that, thanks again, Luke and Matheus, and thanks to Stefan and Jean for putting the workshop on as well. We will look forward to seeing you sometime in the next couple months.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.